All right, my friend, we are ready to start on the next part of our bunny from our Five Little Bunnies pattern. Now remember, because we've turned this pattern from being a knit in the round pattern to a flat knitted pattern, we were knitting and purling. So we've knit and purled 14 rows to make a stockinette pattern. And as you can see, on the front are my knit stitches, and then of course on the back are my purl stitches. So now I'm ready to start my decreases. And to start our decreases, we are going to do a knit 2 and a knit 2 together. And so our pattern probably says K2, K2 tog. Remember, K2 means that we knit 2 stitches. 1, 2, and K2 tog means we knit 2 stitches together to make 1. So we have 24 stitches right now on our needle, and by the time we're done with our row, we are going to have 18 stitches. So let's begin. Here we go, my friend. We're going to knit 1, 2, and now we're going to knit 2 together. Knit 1, 2, knit 2 together. And I'm sorry my camera keeps kind of going blurry. Okay, knit 1, 2, knit 2 together. 1, 2, knit 2 together. If you need to pause the video while you finish your row, please do. Then come back for the next step. Knit 1, knit 2, knit 2 together. Knit 1, knit 2, and our last one, knit 2 together. So now that we've completed this knit row, we're getting ready to start a purl row. But really quickly, let's see how many stitches we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We have 18 stitches. So now we're ready to start row number 16. And because it is an even row and we are making this flat, we are going to purl this row. So let's purl. We're not going to do any special stitches. We're just going to purl along this row. And remember, my friend, when you need to pause the video and complete a row, absolutely do, then come back. And we're almost done. We'll finish purling our row. And 3 more stitches left to purl, and we're done with row 16. Now we're ready to turn it over, and we're going to work on row 17. And row 17, of course, is another decrease row. So in this row, we are going to go from 18 stitches to 12 stitches. So we're going to do a K1, K2 tog. That's knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, and we'll do it all the way down the row. So let's begin. Here we go. Knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, 1, knit 2 together. Just continue going down the row that same way. Knit 1, knit 2 together. Remember, please pause the video if you need to. And our last K2 tog. And there we go. All right. We've gotten even smaller. Let's count and see where our stitches are at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exactly where we need to be, at 12 stitches. Perfect. All right, my friend. So now we are ready to go on to row 18. And row 18 again is a purl row. So we're just going to purl back across. Now, I am going to go ahead and pause the video here for me. And when I come back, I'll have my purl row finished. You pause the video if you need to. Do your purl row. And then we'll come back together to do the next part of our knitting. All right, my friend, we are now done with that purl row, and we are ready to move on to our last decrease row. This is row number 19, and we're going to go from 12 stitches to 6 stitches. And that means we're just going to do knit 2 together all the way down the row. So let's get started. And remember, pause the video if you need to. So we're going to knit 2 together. Knit 2 together. Knit 2 together. Knit 2 together. Got 2 more. Knit 2 together, and our last one, knit 2 together. And now you'll notice our piece is getting smaller and smaller on top. So let's count. We should have 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yay! All right, my friend. So we're actually not going to bind off or cast off right now. We're not going to do that. What we're actually going to do is we are going to get our scissors, and we're going to do something a little different. Because this pattern was knit in the round, you had to make a few minor tweaks, but this is basically the same thing we'd do if it was in the round. So we need a longer tail, and we're just going to cut our yarn away. We're done with the bulb for the moment. We need a yarn needle, and we're going to thread that tail that we just cut onto our yarn needle. And then this is what we're going to do. We are just going to go into each stitch. 1, 2, and just take them off the needle. 3, 4, and number 5. And we're going to pull that yarn needle through those stitches with that piece of yarn, and we're just going to pull them tight, just like that. And pull them nice and tight. Now, I'm going to pull them really tight, and I'm going to go back into the first one again on the other side. So you can see my needle was here, and I've taken it into this first one over here, and I'm going to pull it really tight, and then I'm going to go back into that last stitch over on this side and go into both. I'm going to go through the first and last stitches a couple of times right there and just keep pulling them tight. See, I'm making it kind of round on top. So I'm pulling those two really tight together. Now, we need to sew up our little bunny here, our little egg. So we're going to turn our little egg wrong side out. Because we've got a long tail here, we're going to use it to close it up. So I'm actually going to kind of stick my needle through to the other side. I might go through the middle of it through stitches. It just kind of makes it easier, at least for me to do it this way. You absolutely do not have to. You can just start. And now we've got our little ends here together. So it isn't always easy to see where you need to stitch at to make your seam and close it. There's lots of ways that you can close the seam, but I think the best way to do it is to find the stitch on the end on one side and find a stitch on the end on the other side. And you're actually going to go under. So we're going to go under both legs, kind of bring them together. And we're just going to go back and forth. And it may not be perfect, and that's okay. Sometimes it's not perfect when we close up our stitches. Closing up on the end can be kind of difficult, but just take your time. Look for your stitches. This one's a big one. This one's pretty big over here. And side stitches are not always pretty. Let's just keep trying our best to find them. Tends to be the way that we close them up. There is a way to make your edges prettier and make this much, much easier, but it's not a big deal. So we're just going to keep closing on both sides and just go down your seam. Keep looking for those stitches. And remember, pause the video, my friend, if you need to. There we go. All right, my friend, I've completed sewing up my seam. And if you'll notice, I actually went under the edge of each stitch on the end, so it kind of gives me this little seam where it still doesn't look perfect on the outside, but basically it kind of brings those rows next to them together, and if it was done perfectly, it hides the seam so you can't see it. But before we go there, when you get done, you get down to the end, we're going to take a couple little stitches right here. Just go under them a time or two. Oops, my needle came out. And we're going to do that just so we can kind of make a little loop-de-loop down here. We'll go through that last stitch. 1, 2. And before I pull it all the way this time, I'm going to stick my needle through my little loop that I made, and then I'll pull it. So I kind of have a knot there. Okay, I'm not going to cut my yarn off yet. Actually, I probably won't cut it off because I'll just tuck it up inside. It's going to hide when I stuff my little egg. But right now, I don't want to stuff my egg. I want to turn it wrong or right side out now. And yes, I still got to close this bottom up, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. Before we do all of that, we've got faces to stitch on. We've got ears to apply. We've got some things left to do. But if you can see, we're starting to get our little egg shape. It's on top. So now we are going to start. Sorry, I cut myself off. So let's make our ears. All right, my friend, to make your ears, we're going to set aside our little bunny body and everything. We need our knitting needles again and our yarn. And now our ears, we're going to make 2 of them. And they're pretty simple. But, oops. The thing about our ears is they only take a couple of stitches. So we are going to cast on 4 stitches. We're just going to cast on 4 stitches. And I'm going to leave a little tail. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 stitches to start our ear. All right. We're going to knit the 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to purl. So, go. Remember, bring your yarn to the front for purling. 1, 2, 3, and number 4. So knit, purl, and we're going to repeat rows 1 and 2 again. So we're going to knit row 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I kind of tug on it a little bit to straighten out my, tighten it and tug. Now I'm going to purl. This is row number 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've completed 4 rows of stockinette, 2 rows of knit, 2 rows of purl, and now we are going to make our bunny ear. We're going to kind of shape it. Row number 5 is a K2 tog knit to end. So we're going to knit the first 2 stitches together, and then we're going to knit stitch number 2 and number 3. All right, now we're going to purl, and we're going to do a purl 2 tog and purl to the end. And all that means is we're going to purl the first 2 stitches together. So we're going to purl, and then we'll purl the last stitch. So we have 2 stitches, and then our last row, we've only got 2 little stitches on here. It's kind of crazy, Our last row is a knit 2 together. There we go. Kind of got a little pointy bunny ear. And again, we're not going to cast off. We are just going to cut our yarn. We don't have to cut it very long, but long enough. We need our yarn needle again for just a second. And we are literally just going to put our needle through that last stitch and pull, which tightens it up. And then you can kind of fasten it off as you need to. You can, I have a little hole here, so I'm going to do something. If you end up with a little hole like I did in my ear because my stitch is kind of big, you could always take a little stitch down the back of the ear. Just like that. And kind of weave your yarn into at the same time. There we go. Okay. There's bunny ear number 1. And don't forget to kind of shape your bunny ear. This yarn is kind of hard to work with, so it leaves funny stitches. Makes them kind of big and stretchy. So do your best with the yarn you have. You make your little bunny ear shape, and let's make bunny ear number 2. Same thing. We're going to cast on 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, my friend. Remember, we're going to knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row. So I will be back in just a minute. Knit row 1, purl row 2, knit row 3, purl row 4. All right, my friend. Now, when you've completed knitting and purling your 4 rows, remember our 5th row is going to be a knit 2 together. So we are going to knit the first 2 stitches together. I'll try and pull these really tight. And then we're going to knit stitch number 3 and, or 2, sorry, and 3. There we go. Now we're down to 3 stitches. On the next row, we're going to purl. We're going to purl the first 2 stitches together, and I'm just going to try and pull it really tight, trying to avoid those big open stitches that I had on the other ear. And then I'm going to purl stitch number 2. So I'm kind of covering my knitting up, and I'm done. If I tug on it, it kind of curls my ear together. And remember, I'm going to cut me a tail. I'm going to thread it onto my yarn needle. Uh-oh, I forgot a step. Hold on. Got 2 stitches left. Forgot about that. We need to do a knit 1 together. We need, or sorry, do a knit 2 together one more time. So, luckily I left myself enough. Knit 2 together. Then cut your yarn away. All right, now we've got it. We're ready. And we will purl. We'll put the yarn on our needle, and we will run it through our little stitch. And then take our stitch off our needle and pull it really tight to tighten up that stitch. Really tight. And it creates a point for you. And now I can kind of bring my, like I said, I can bring my yarn and weave it down the back a little bit. Because we hide our yarn. Okay, there we go. You don't want to pull it too tight though and get rid of my little point. I want to keep my little pointy rabbit ear. So I'm just kind of hiding it in there a little bit. That's my only thing I'm doing, is just hiding it a little bit. And then I can use it, I can kind of run it down the back of my ear because it's going to be hidden. And I can use it when I sew my ears on. Okay, my friend, we're going to get ready to sew our bunny ears on. All right, so you might notice I have 3 ears. I went ahead and redid my first ear, made it third ear, because I just didn't like how my first ear came out as this big stitch. And it's okay to redo things. So I'm just going to set this one aside because you can see it's bigger than the others. I did these stitches tighter. That's just a personal comfort preference. Alrighty. So now our next step we need to do is sew our little bunny ears on. And I'm actually going to change yarn needles. This yarn needle's really a little big for sewing the bunny ears on. I'm going to get a little smaller one. Get it out of the package. That would be wonderful. There we go. There's a smaller yarn needle. Okay, so now we are going to sew on our bunny ears. We need our yarn needle, of course. We need our little bunny body, and we need an ear. So just pick out which ear you want. Now remember, I had taken our little top thread here and kind of brought it down the middle back here. You can, at this point, if you want to, just trying to think. You can use this lumpy so you can kind of cut it off. It's really up to you. I am going to leave it for the moment, but I'll probably end up cutting it off. Now, I am going to take my cast on tail though, and I am going to thread it onto my yarn needle. And I need to figure out, where do I want my bunny ears? And you just kind of go off the picture. From our pattern, and you kind of figure out where to stick your little bunny ears. And it will take, you might want to get some help to sew on those little bunny ears, and it's okay if you do. But you're basically just going to go in and out on the top of your project, making sure that you catch, and sometimes this happens, your yarn will come off your yarn needle, but making sure that you catch stitches along the bottom of your bunny ear. Make sure mine kind of turns the right way, and let's take it back inside. Okay, make sure I have that where I want it. I do. So now I am just going to stitch my little bunny ear on. And just sew it on where I want it. When your bunny ear is where you want it and you're happy with it, then you can sew the next bunny ear next to it. Okay, let's look at the inside though. Once your bunny ear's where you want it, we need to secure it so it doesn't come off. And of course, my tail's a little short, so it keeps coming off my yarn. But I've pulled the yarn through. So now I'm just going to kind of go through a stitch a time or two. Weave it. Remember, in knitting, we don't cut our yarn. We weave it in. So I'll figure out if I can get it right underneath that stitch. Turn it. It's a tight stitch. Yeah, I'll pick a different one. There we go. I'll go into this one. And I'm just going to take it back and forth under some stitches that I can find. I'm not going to pull it tight. I'm just weaving in my ends. And when I feel comfortable, and I'm taking care to try to not go through to the other side. So when I feel comfortable, I'm just going to leave it. The little tail, because, well, it's going to be hidden inside when I stuff it in a little bit. So there's bunny ear number 1. All right, my friend, you could attach bunny ear number 2, and we'll be right. All right, my friend, now my bunny ears are attached, and it's time that I sew on my face. So I'm going to figure out what yarn I want to use, or thread, whichever needle I need. I am actually going to use some embroidery floss. So I've got some hot pink. I think I have some black here. Yes, I do. I've got some black and some pink. And this is a little thicker than thread, but I'm going to get me a long piece so I can do both eyes. And we'll worry about the nose a little bit. I'm going to figure out where I want to place my little eyes. So I'll probably put my hand in and just see, okay. I kind of put my ears back a little too far. I should have put them forward a little bit more. But I want my little eyes not up here where it's rounded so much. I want my little eyes probably more right in here. But you figure out where you want your eyes at based on the pattern. And if you need to put a little stuffing in it so you can figure out where your eyes go, absolutely put some stuffing in it. Matter of fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. Alright, I have a little handful of stuffing here. I am going to put a little stuffing inside my bunny egg, and that'll help kind of round out the top for me so I can figure out, oh yeah, I kind of want my eyes right in here. So to do that, now I can do this one of two ways. I can fill the bunny body up, and actually our pattern says, well, it says to embroider the eyes and nose first and then stuff and fill. So truly it's up to you. It might be easier to go ahead and stuff and fill and then embroider, but you do what you're comfortable with. So I've got a little stuffing in there that just gives me a better guide to where I'm going. I am going to thread my yarn needle. And then I'm going to figure out where my eyes go. So there are my ears. I'm going to put my eyes. I'm going to find a stitch. And I think I'll go with this one right here. Yep, I'm going to go with this one. And I'm going to not pull my embroidery floss all the way through. I'm actually going to lay it. I'm going to pull it through the side of the stitch, and then I'm going to lay my little tail over, and then I'm going to kind of go back and forth over it a little bit if I can. Okay, I'm going to start to pull a little stitch, and then I'll tuck it in. There we go. Now I've got it just the way I want it. And I'm just going to go back and forth, not pulling it tight because I don't want to squish my little eye or my stitch so much. But I am just going to go back and forth several times. You'll notice I'm kind of just laying my tail that I left back and forth across as I stitch. It's a little bit easier if I take it through the yarn first, or through the stitch first, and then before I pull the stitch completely tight, I can tuck my little tail under it and pull and hide it. And then I can kind of cut away the end a little bit here, and the rest of it's going to be hidden in there. Okay, let's just make our little eyes. And just go back and forth, making your little eye as many stitches as you're comfortable with and you think you need. And once I have the stitches that I want, I'm going to go back in on the other side, but instead of coming out over here, I'm actually going to go under. So that's under 1, 2, and I'm going to come out over here. So I've gone over 1, 2, 3. Don't pull it tight though. And I found my other stitch over here that I want to make. I want to go back and forth through. And so I'm just going to start going back and forth, stitching my eye. And that's how I do it. I don't ever have to take my yarn needle out. Probably should have counted how many rounds I went around that particular stitch, but I'll just do it over here until I'm comfortable. I'll be honest, I'm not real pleased with how neat everything's coming out. Part of that has to do with my yarn. This yarn is not my favorite, but it's a good one for this. Okay, have my little eye on. Then I'll take my little eye back inside. And this time I'm going to pull my stitch inside. So my yarn's in there, or my embroidery floss. And then I can pull it this way a little bit. And you'll see that I can kind of tuck my embroidery floss in through one of the little rounds there, and I'll make a little knot. All done. And pull a little bit, and then I can cut it away. And I've got my little eye. All right, now got my eyes. And kind of adjust them as I need to. And I need to figure out where my nose goes. And my nose is going to go right in the middle. So I'm actually going to put my nose kind of right there in the middle of those two stitches. So I need some pink embroidery floss. Since I'm just doing a nose, I don't need a whole lot, but I need enough. Always going to need more than what you think you need. It's better to be too long than too short. Okay. Now here's my eyes. So I can come down where I think my stitch is going to go. Put it right. Right there. Let's go right here. Does that look good? Maybe not. Maybe right here. Actually think I'm going to go under 3 stitches, or 3 little legs. A stitch and a half basically is what I'm going under for the nose, and I'm doing that because it just doesn't look symmetrical to me otherwise. And I'll just continue to go back and forth just like I did with the eyes. Making my little nose. And it's okay if I pull it a little tighter. See, there's my little tail. I actually let this one a little shorter, but I can hide it. Oops, my needle came off. That's not uncommon. I'm going to guide where that lays with my finger. And I'll thread my needle again. And I'll just go back through and do a couple more. And just keep going for a minute or two. And then I'm done. I'll bring it one last stitch through to the inside. I'll take it through a stitch, just like that. Kind of make a little knot. And I can cut it, and I'm all done. Now, I've got my eyes and my nose. It's not my favorite nose. It's not perfect. I'm going to kind of trim these little pieces right here that are my tail. Oh, I just don't like them. Okay, be careful not to cut your yarn. And it's not the most symmetrical face, but I'm happy with it. Okay, now I'm going to stuff my little bunny body. Just going to stuff it as stuffy stuffed as I want it to be. I'm going to try and shape my little bunny body. You actually could just put this over a plastic Easter egg to shape it. Stuff it, it's up to you. Now though, we got to close this bottom. And to do that, we need a tail. Now, I did not leave my tail long enough. That happens sometimes. Just one of those things. I'm going to go ahead and try. It's not going to work. I'll be real honest. I know it's not going to work. So because I didn't leave my tail long enough, I don't need it too much longer, but I need it long enough. So I'm going to take one of my tails. I'll figure out which one I want. And I'm literally just going to tie on. I'm going to do that. Actually, I'm going to do what they call a magic. I call it a magic knot. It's not really magic. I'm going to tie my tail yarn around my new piece. I make a little knot. And then I'm going to take my new piece and actually tie it around my tail as well. And then I'll show you what it does. Okay, I've tied my pieces together. And then I have this little funny loopy thing. But if I pull my knots together, and then I can trim off these little tails. And usually I can get a little bit closer than that and make it look a little neater. Okay, now I have a longer piece. And I'm actually going to take my bigger yarn needle now, thread it, and I am going to tuck this extra tail in. I'm not even going to cut it away. I'm just going to, or weave it underneath it. I'm just going to tuck it in. And I'm going to take my tail yarn here, and I am going to go in and out. Now that little knot is going to give me some trouble for a minute. It's going to catch on stitches. I'm going to have to fiddle with it, but it's okay. I'm actually going to go in and out of my cast on edge, because this is my cast on edge. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to go under a stitch towards the center, kind of fiddle with this a minute. There we go. And then I'm going to go from the inside towards the outside with it and bring it back through. And I am going to keep doing that literally for 24 stitches, because that's what we had. This is why I need a long tail. I'm going to keep going back and forth for 24 stitches. Now, if you want to wait to stuff your bunny till after you've gone under all these stitches, you absolutely can. Okay, my friend, I'll be right back. All right, my friend, I'm almost done weaving in, going back and forth. I'm going to do this last couple with you again. So I'm going to go in towards the center, and I'm going to come back out the other way. Go in towards the center, and right here, literally just going to figure out where to stick it and come back out. Now, I am just going to pull. I'm going to pull really, 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 really tight. Probably is having a little trouble closing because I had that little knot in there. If it does, I can just kind of go in and out again. If it doesn't close all the way for you because you have some trouble, just go through some stitches again. Keep going. Just keep going around and pull, and just keep pulling until you get that end closed the way you want it. Like I said, my knot caused me some problems, so it's not wanting to close up quite right. Now it's starting to. So I'm just going to go under these stitches a time or two more. Just going around and pull and back and forth though. You're really doing you're making a drawstring basically, and you're closing it up. Again, this is not my favorite yarn, so it's not as fancy as I'd like it to be. Okay, once I get everything closed, I can kind of weave my end in down here. Again, it's not fancy. It doesn't look great down there. I don't really like it that well, but we're going to call it good. And then I can just kind of draw my needle through and pull out the other end, and then I can cut my end. And I've woven my end in. And then I can shape him. Kind of roll him in my hand. Do everything I need to do to make my little bunny egg. And there we go. There is your bunny egg. He is all ready to go in your Easter basket. Oops, got a little pink piece. Come off. There we go. So your bunny's all ready to go now. You've got your little Easter bunny. If you need any help, have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to help.